Well, hello there, everybody. It's nice to be back on camera, on screen, and actually feel like I am a part of the team tonight. We have a very special episode for you. Apologies if there was a little bit of technical difficulty there. I don't know why, but Streamlabs decided that 2 seconds ago was the time that it needed to close. However, for future watchers, appreciate you tuning in or sticking with us if we dropped and came back on. We are joined tonight by Mbueha, you can call me Ben, of Team Relentless, and the one and only head judge this season of Vader League, Nash J, or Nima. And we're going to go ahead and talk about this new forum thingy that was unveiled today and talk about some of the implications and the rulings and a little bit of the theory, the process, and all that good stuff because I happen to be lucky enough to be part of the team. And I thought it might be kind of fun to talk about things a little bit. So, with that in mind, Ben, you want to take us away?
Yeah, sure. I'm a boy. You can call me Ben of Team Relentless. I'm super pumped to be here tonight with you all to pour over this new forum. I literally just made my account for it about 30 minutes ago, so I'm pumped to see everything that it does. I've heard a little bit about it from LJ, but I'm looking forward to learning more tonight.
Yep, same here. I also made my account just like in the last 30 minutes, just before we started this stream. So yeah, you're in good company, Ben. And I'm also looking forward to seeing what is in here and what rulings we have and what are we going to learn about what the future of the rules are going to look like for Legion.
Yeah, 100%. So LJ, if I could ask you a question to lead things off here, I just want to know, like, what do we expect to find in this forum? Like, is it a community forum? What's it for? What am I going to find there when I go there?
So that's a great question. The kind of baseline idea behind this forum was that it would replace all of those old FAQ rulings that we had previously and kind of give them a new home. And it would also be a place for the developers to update those rulings quickly and kind of cut down some of the merry-go-round of email rulings that were going around and that kind of plagued the community early on. So, when we look at this forum, you have an opportunity to ask a rules question and get an official rules answer in a reasonable amount of time. I know I'll be watching this as much as I can, but the policy between myself and Luke is in no more than 5 business days, you'll have an official ruling. And more importantly, that because it's an official ruling, that they're valid for your table at home and they're valid for worlds all the way up the chain. So this is something where we can get much faster feedback from the developers and kind of close a hole that TOs like myself had earlier where it would take a while to get rulings before major events.
That's awesome. That's I love how quickly we're going to be able to get answers to some of the some of the FAQs, some of the points of contention that sometimes come up, and that they're all going to be located in one place is pretty awesome. So I'm pumped about that. So what's it look like though when I how do I ask a question? Like, if I ask a question and get an answer, like, you said emails, do I get an email about it, or?
Yeah, so the way that it's set up, if you're familiar with the way that the Marvel Crisis Protocol forum does it, it'll work exactly the same. If you're not, which I'm sure, we all know that Team Relentless here is a pillar in the MCP community as well as Legion, what you'll do is you'll make a post like you're making a post on any old forum, but it'll be hidden until a moderator approves it. Before a moderator or Luke Eddy himself approves it, they will also probably either answer your question directly or have a dialogue with you. So you might get a little bit of back and forth, and you might actually have a bit of a discussion, or you might just see, hey, this is the ruling, yes, no, and then it's locked, and then it's approved so other people can see it, and then it just goes on the forum like a regular old post.
Nice. So if I understand you correctly, like, I basically have a direct line to Luke Eddy now to have conversations with him. And I'm looking forward. I've never met him, but I'm sure that we're going to have a great time chatting on the forum together.
Yeah, no, and you should do exactly that. You should send questions on there that are, hey, Luke, did you remember to eat breakfast today? Or, stuff like that. You really need to keep him engaged because, Luke's moving up in the world. He's the head of Star Wars at AMG right now. He's not just doing Legion these days. And so, if we don't keep him engaged and busy with these type of questions, he's going to fall off the wagon, and before you know it, he's going to be throwing around star destroyers onto the armada table. We got to keep his attention.
So that's super interesting. One thing that you said, that everything on this forum is going to be only official rules answers. So if I go on and search, I can be confident that anything that I see is going to be an approved answer. This isn't just like an open forum that we may have been used to before, where it's people discussing the rules. You can come here and be confident that we're finding answers.
Yeah, so it's not going to be the more open style that like Facebook, Discord, or the old forums were. This is specifically for rules questions and rules questions only. And I can tell you by looking at the posts that have already been made today, there already was like one post that would be a straight up like RRG change that would require pictures and a lot of other like that's it's too much. The kind of thing that this forum is going to get you the quickest result and kind of the best bang for your buck are those interactions between a command card and an upgrade, between a keyword and the way that it's worded and you're not quite sure if it matches something else. That's where this forum is really going to make you a lot of money, and I think you'll see that in the questions that we've answered. And I always like to tell my students, no question is a stupid question. All teachers pretend they say that. But we all know that there is such thing as a stupid question. And so when you
It's
go
true.
to the forum, I'll tell you that I am prepared to answer whatever people ask or press the delete button if it's inappropriate. But I will tell you that the search function on this forum is really, really, really good. And now that your posts are going to start flowing in, there is a function to tag them. So if you want to see all rules related to fire support, for example, and search through the questions that other people have asked, or find if your question has already been answered, that search tool especially is really gonna make you a lot of money. So that's kind of the other purpose of what we're doing tonight, is to talk about like those little things and how best to skin the cat. I know we want to get the answer as quickly as humanly possible, and there's already a lot that's built in here, and we basically doubled the amount of FAQs that had existed previously to get this ready before today. So for a lot of this, the answer is probably already out there, including stuff like Lando and Callus have already been taken care of. So lots of stuff has been addressed in this, and I'm looking forward to expanding on it as time goes on.
That's awesome. That's so cool. I hadn't, it hadn't occurred to me as that there was going to be a advanced search function like that with post being tagged. That's going to be money, like you said. That'll be slick. Can
That's
we see
really
it?
cool.
I
Do
want
you
to
want to
see it.
see it? Do you want to see
I
it?
want to see it.
All right, well, that's the whole reason why we're here, so why wait? All right, so let me switch over here. All right, there we go. So this is the forum itself. I tried to zoom it in a little bit more, but if we're having a ton of, if it's really hard to see, just let me know, chat, and I can try to zoom it in a little further for you. So this is the version that everybody else can see. It does look a little different on my end, so I did exit out. Sorry, no top secret things about the Ewok faction or anything like that today. But what you're going to see is obviously there's one form right here, Star Wars Legion rule questions, nice and easy. You're going to go ahead, you're going to click on that, and then it'll take you to the form itself. Now, if you're logged in on a regular profile, there'll be a nice blue button up here in the top right that will say, new post, add post, whatever it is. And then that's how you
Start new
submit your
topic.
question. Yeah, start new topic. That was it. So if you were somebody that had a rules question and you were impatient, you didn't want to use that search button I just explained about, you'd click on that and it'll take you to the way to make your post. You make your post and you move on with your life and you wait for the ruling. If you have a little bit more patience than that, though, again, search function up here, super handy. Again, if I just type in, let's say the same thing as before, fire support, and I click search, then you can see it'll take me to the most recent topics. And again, it won't just it'll take you to exactly where that question is answered inside a topic. So you can see that it brings up the post that was made today about Rex Gunslinger and air support, and it brings up my response, and it brings up the RRG correction that has the word support in it, and it brings up, specific questions in the FAQ section. So it really gets into the details if you want that, if that's what you're looking for. And because this is all part of the same forum, if you had a question related to Rapid Fire versus Ghost Rider and Doctor Strange, you also might get the answer to that because we do share battle space with the MCP guys. But, we love them. They got really cool, models. Did anybody else see the Luke Cage and the other stuff that they came out with recently? Oh, so good.
That
Anyway,
looked awesome. Yep.
uh, y-
Floating on a big stream of
a
flames
fire.
is just yeah.
So good. The Iron Fist stuff, so good. Anyway, so again, we'll get us back to the main page here. So what I want to do, and really kind of the main meat of this, is to talk a little bit about what has actually changed. What did they put in here? Because unlike the RRG, we weren't able to quite blue text this, so you could see all the changes right away. It'll be a little more obvious in the future when we add new stuff, but for this first push, I thought it might be helpful to kind of go through some of these topics so we could kind of see what to do, where to start, and what has changed. So you might actually notice I was playing around with the tags today, and if you look, it's got a tag on the welcome post that says start here. And then after that, it's got a tag that says then go here. And then after that, it's got a rule reference correction thing that says and finally here. So I even tried to make it super easy for the uninitiated to just flow through this and look through these, because obviously I want you to know the rules of the forum first before you start posting. Now, I'm going to skip this because we pretty much have gone over it at this point, and I'm going to go straight to the RRG corrections because there's only 5 of those. Those are pretty quick and easy. Before I start, Ben, any predictions on anything you wanted to see changed in the RRG?
Changed in the RRG? No, I don't. I know that there was a debate about area terrain at some point, and I'm hoping that we see some information about that. But that might be an FAQ. I don't know.
All right, so those predictions, I want you to lock them in because we'll see if we cover them as time goes on. But we'll just start nice and easy. This is one that was highly requested by people, and I think a lot of people played it this way anyway. There was a problem with the way that your eWebs, when they went into your open transports, they lost all fixed keywords. And the problem with that is that you couldn't then add generators to them and then put those eWebs into the occupier. And so right off the bat, Luke came out swinging, and he put in this little nifty bullet that replaced an RRG bullet and instead says while a transported unit is performing an attack, it ignores the restrictions of any fixed keywords on its weapons, so your eWebs can still 360 no-scope fools on the back of your occupier, but also put a note in there that says the weapons are considered to have fixed keywords for the purposes of other game effects, just like equipping generator upgrades. So this is a great example here of how powerful this forum is going to be for the Star Wars Legion community. Just right off the bat, you can see how we can instantly go in, take a look at a bullet in the RRG, replace it with what the intended effect of that bullet was, and then explain why this resolves an unintended interaction with the transport X open keyword and the generator upgrades. So boom, it covers all that right there. This is, as I said, a great starting point. Um, I think now we can fully accept that the occupier eWeb meta is upon us, and those of you who are going on to the Invader League single eliminations should probably look into this new tech if you want to be successful. Am I right or am I right?
You're right.
Absolutely.
All
As
right.
a rebel player, I'm sad, but I'm happy on behalf of my Imperial friends.
There you go. So then the next one that goes down here is in the standby entry, the following bullet point should be considered added. So this is a new bullet point. This is not amending an old one. Repulsor vehicles cannot perform the standby action and cannot gain or spend standby tokens. If a repulsor vehicle would gain a standby token through a game effect, the token is returned to the supply instead. So this one might grate against my fellow Rebel players a little bit. I apologize. I know we were looking forward to giving a T-47 a standby token via Ace up his sleeve, but instead the Luke ruled in the opposite and said that you cannot do that. So I apologize in advance. I know people were looking forward to that, but I think his mentality on that one was that, the repulsor vehicles are meant to be constantly moving, and you can't exactly stand by when you're constantly on the move. Makes sense, right?
What's
Yes,
with
it
the rebel
does.
hate?
I know.
Yeah.
We've already started with +1 for Imperials, -1 for Rebels. Perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Um,
Now, okay,
uh,
I have a question here, though. I
yeah.
noticed this one caused a lot of discussion, both on, I think, on Facebook and on Discord. Do you want to clarify for us right now, just so that everybody hears that there's no confusion? Does this affect like the Saber spending standbys off of Padme, or the big repulsor vehicles, the hover ground vehicles?
Well, actually, I think what you should do is log into the forum, and
Oh,
you should make a post.
oh, there
Uh,
we go. We can make a post. Yeah.
Look at
so
that.
and okay, so that's perfect opportunity. I'm glad you said that. The reason why I answered Ben like that is because I did notice that there was a follow-on Facebook post today asking for a related question based off a posted FAQ. And that was my response. Hey, I don't care how many of these you have to make. Make more posts because that's what this forum is here for. To answer your actual question though, because the Saber and the AAT have hover ground, they can still generate and spend standby tokens. So they're still good to go.
Yeah, but that's a great to bring up, that like people really should not hesitate to. It's not a big deal to ask a question on this. Like that,
No,
it's
we're
what you
probably in
should do.
this weird headspace as a community where we expect to email these questions off to somebody, and then maybe in 3 months we'll get a concrete answer. We have the power to turn these around in a much quicker fashion, and so we got to retrain the community a little bit. But obviously, I think it'll be a good thing overall to see that change. So let's go down to 2 weeks later, as the page says, and go to the first thing that I added was rules reference correction. In the barricade entry, the following bullet point should be added. Barricades cannot be placed overlapping objective or condition tokens. I got a fantastic picture that I wish I would have had ready for the stream for you, but it was somebody that, if you imagine barricades placed normally on the normal side and canted the regular way that a barricade is, but instead they put their hand on it and they pushed it over so it went flat against its back, if that makes sense. And they had put two barricades on either side of an objective token like that, so nothing could physically touch the token. And I thought to myself, well, that's dumb. I'm going to write a bullet point about it. And that's where we got. So when you put barricades on the board, you cannot cover objective or condition tokens. That was meant to stop that. So, I mean, I think there's another FAQ that has to do with this question. I think it's just kind of at this point common sense for most people, but we wanted to avoid somebody saying, no, obviously, yes, I can do that because it's not in the RRG. And again, instead of bloating the rules reference guide, we have a perfect example here of being able to amend something really quick and maybe either update it later or just let it live here because it's such an edge case scenario.
And
Yeah.
that's a
So
great example of one of those things where most players are like, "What? I didn't even think that you could do something like that. It's just completely unimaginable." And it's great that we have this resource now that we can quickly tamp it out and not have to deal with it as a community.
Yep. The next one is a little interesting. This is something that came up recently in an Invader game. Before detachment units were only one model, but with the DRKs, they are now multiple models. And so the way that it's been ruled now is that you have to be speed 1 and within height 1 of a unit leader. Sorry, it's unit leader to unit leader essentially, which is how most people played it. but when we read the RRG, it wasn't actually specified. So like you could put the speed 1 move on Darth Maul and then put it on a non-unit leader model in the DRKs. That would allow you to then, using cohesion, swing the DRK unit leader out a little farther and
Effectively,
get
like
you'd get a
speed
couple
3 away.
extra, yeah, you get a couple extra inches of movement out of that, you know?
Yeah.
So that was what that one was intended to cover. And I'm not going to spend too much time on that one because I think that just makes good sense. And then the last one is in the embark disembark entry, the following bullet point should be removed. A unit that is being transported can use its standby token to disembark. Huh. Where did I see this 50 times today? In its place, the following bullet point should be considered added. A unit that is being transported by vehicle with Transport X open can use its standby token to disembark. A unit transported by vehicle with Transport X closed cannot spend standby tokens. So basically, what the problem was we noticed with this bullet is that it just says transported. It doesn't specify what type of transport. But then when you get into the specific types of transports, it gets a little muddy. And so we just wanted to essentially clear that up. Make it clear that yes, you can do this with open, you can't do this with closed. Pretty straightforward, I think.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm sure it's going to be the only embark disembark entry that we'll be seeing on this website ever.
Yes, yes. You know, the vehicle rules for transports and embarking, disembarking, they're probably the tightest rules I've ever seen of any game. So you're right. I'm never going to have to touch those again. All right, so that's it for the RRG. You know, if anybody that's watching has questions, feel free to, you know, to pitch them if you want to ask more about what's going on the stream. But pending anything from Ben or Nima, I'm actually going to hop it over to the FAQ thread to start chewing through this big guy.
I have one quick question.
Mm-hmm.
My question is when the next version of the RRG comes out and those bullet points are actually replaced, will these rules reference corrections be like archived so that because technically now the RRG is up to date, so we maybe don't need to look at them anymore, or no?
Yeah, so I believe that is the plan, is as soon as something is officially added to the RRG or, you know, another document, if they were to update something else with a relevant ruling, then that's exactly what would happen. We would
Nice, that's
just,
perfect.
and I think what I would like to do is if we do anything to the RRG section, I would like to maybe annotate a little change log at the top so people know that that happened.
That would be super slick. And then
So
this doesn't get overwhelming, you know, in 6 months from now, if it never gets cleared out, that could be a very overwhelming forum. But if it's continually being up, you know, RRG is updated, so that gets archived and there's a change log, and that's
yep.
slick.
So that's what I'd like to do. We'll see what happens in practice, but you know, Luke has been really good about, you know, working with me and talking through how I want to see this because, you know, like I said, he's assuming larger roles at AMG, and so, you know, as more time goes on, this is actually probably going to become more of my baby than his. And if there's a really tough one that I need his ruling on, that's when I bring it to his attention, which is kind of my role here in all of this. Is part A, before this opened, I was really just kind of assembling everything, giving Luke what guidance I had, and then letting him make his rulings if it wasn't clear cut. After this, it's going to be just managing the day-to-day traffic and really bringing the important issues to his desk so he can knock those out as quickly as possible.
And you just transitioned into answering. Jacob Puma asked a question in stream, basically wondering what your relationship is with AMG. If you're able to say, are you an employee of AMG? Is this a volunteer gig? You know, we hear you talking about like you've got Luke's ear. You're working with Luke directly to answer questions and stuff like that. So who are you now?
Well, look at me. I am the captain now.
uh,
You know, and Luke actually put it best. He sent out an email to a couple people the day before yesterday, and he said that, you know, hey, by the way, this is LJ. We're paying him to do everything that he did previously, and I'm not on the same level as, you know. It doesn't say AMG LJ next to my name on the forum like it does for Luke. I am what's considered to be a freelancer. I'm a freelance forum moderator.
Awesome.
So the contract actually came from Asmodee, not from AMG, which I thought was kind of spicy.
Be spicy.
Yes. All right.
That's great.
So, with all that in mind, that's a good question, Deco. Thank you for asking. Let's go ahead and move it on to the FAQ section. So, the first part of the FAQ section is going to be fairly familiar. There's not a lot of extra stuff in there. It's going to go over, some basics that had been talked about before. How much terrain should be placed on a battlefield for a game of Star Wars Legion? This is one that still comes up all the time. Does the unit leader need to have line of sight to the defending unit, or an attacking unit leader to need to have line of sight to the defending unit leader or unit? Sorry, I'm stepping over my words here. No, they do not. But of course, they do get heavy cover, and that model doesn't contribute to the attack pool. Um, this is a this is a fairly straightforward one when determining obscured minis during an attack. If the defending unit is on a piece of terrain with a higher elevation than the attacking unit, because of how line of sight works, a portion of each defending mini's base will likely be obscured by the terrain. Can this provide the defending unit with cover? Yes. These are things that you get asked all the time, which is exactly why they're on the front page. Because those are those new guy questions that come up all the time, and you can say here for sure, hey, I've been playing this game for like 3 years now. I don't actually remember why I do it this way. I do that a lot. I don't know if you guys do that anymore, but I do that all the time, and it's kind of comforting to have these, like, what I would say simple rulings here, because you can always point back to them and be like, yes, this is how Legion works, and this is why.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah.
I mean,
Even as head judge of Invader League, I have to reference some document somewhere. Like someone will ask such what you consider to be a simple question, and it's just nice to have this thing that I can just go and search and find the answer immediately.
Yep. Okay, so the next on the list is going to be command hand, part of your army. Is it public info? No, not public info. This is one that came up with Cad Bane and Darth Maul. Can one player divulge multiple command cards in the same step or phase of the game? Yes, you can. You can play Maul's 2-pip, throw it away, and then play Cad's 3-pip to start the game in round 1. That is totally legit. Can you spend multiple standbys off the same trigger? Yes, but the same unit can't spend them at the same time. Uh, can the upgrade card Force Push be used to force an enemy unit to perform a climb or clamber? No, it cannot. But somebody's going to ask tomorrow. Somebody's going to ask the day after that. So it's here. What else? These are pretty easy ones. If you perform a move, um, can you use Saber Throw to make a range attack with the melee weapon? Yes, because it's a move action attack action relationship. Um, can a unit be issued an order via another game effect after using Batmed? Yep, can definitely do that. That's a little different than the comms relay ruling, which I'm sure most are familiar with, but I'll get to that when we get to that. Um, when I use the card Improvise Orders to draw a second order token, if that token is a dead draw, do I remove it and then redraw another token? Yep, you do that. If a wounded unit is equipped with the Tenacity upgrade and forms multiple pools, do you add 1 die to each pool? Yep, that's one we had before. Luke did this, and I didn't ask him to do this, but if while performing a move a unit exhausts offensive push to gain tactical 1, does that unit have tactical 1 for the duration of its activation? No, you do not. That's probably one I got. We probably were getting that one every other day for a while, I felt like.
very
And that's
common.
one of your favorites. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yep, favorite. That's a word. Let's see. Whipcord launcher and Boba Fett being engaged with that and being able to move out. Yep. As long as Boba Fett is engaged with one enemy unit that has one immobilized token, he can perform moves while engaged. So, before people thought you could tar pit Boba by hitting him with 2 units. If he whipcords one of them, he can still leave that melee. That's special to Boba Fett.
Not even a Sarlacc could tar
It's
pit Boba Fett.
no, it's like super disengage. Only the man, the myth, the legend. Sorry, checkmate, rebels. Boba Fett. All right, what
Not even
else?
operative Luke can do that.
No, not even operative Luke can do that. Reckless diversion. That one. This is an old ruling as well. Basically, that what are the ways I could cheat reckless diversion? This one stops that. What happens when two players reveal change of plans? That's that ruling that set blue player precedent. Basically, whenever you're doing the exact same thing at the exact same time, blue player must resolve the effect first. That also happens with Count Dooku and Double the Fall if two players play that at the same time. I had that happen. That was kind of sad face, but we're going to skip over that. Let's see. Change of plans. Another change of plans ruling here that's a little older. This is one. This is a new one that kind of snuck in there when Luke was adding them. If you have selected, a command card that you must select, such as Diplomatic Cover or Darkness Descends, um, and you're hit with change of plans, do you still have to select and play that card, even though change of plans says it cannot be? And no, you don't have to. You don't have to still play change of plans, or sorry, you don't still have to play those cards. But that's one of those ones that, like, when we talked it out with each other, we realized that that was kind of dumb, because by the time change of plans hits the table, the player has usually already gotten the effect of that 3 pip. Whether it be getting to infiltrate Vader or whatever have you. Then they get that card back and they can play it again later because of how change of plans works. So that was one that, like, we always told people it was a bad idea, but it's been codified that it does work the way people thought. We just didn't put a note at the bottom that says, but this is probably a bad idea because they're just going to get that command card back and yada yada yada. So that's one that was
Interesting.
added in there. End of activation stuff like given to your anger, maximum firepower, orbital bombardment. This is a ruling with given to your anger that said that you choose the order of simultaneous effects. That one actually did get hard coded into the RRG eventually. I believe that was one of the last things Alex did. But we this one has some relevant examples in it, so I think they left it. Is kind of the end state there. All right, when issuing orders with entire legion, if Batman is used, yep, we kind of covered that already, but this is another way to word that question. Brains and brawn. This is an older one. Pin down, older one. Covering fire. So these at this point, these are ones that I'm all going through that have been addressed before. And then the last thing on this page is the Luke Skywalker "You May Serve Your Master Well" bonanza that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rulings in it, because "You May Serve Your Master Well" is a great card. It's just that good that it needed 7 additional clarifications. It's pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. But
It's very cool.
man, did that have a lot of questions. I don't think any of these are mind blowing or new. I'm pretty sure all of these are older rulings that have just been co-located into one spot. But of course, the highlight is, it says that I can, move that unit. Does that also activate charge and relentless? Yes, because they're activated off move actions. If I'm a clone unit, if I'm controlling a clone unit, can I spend what are now enemy clone troopers around me? Can I spend their tokens? No, you can't spend their tokens because they're enemies to you. Um, when you engage an enemy unit with "You Serve Your Master Well" and it engages what was previously a friendly unit, what happens at the end of that activation? They just stop hugging each other and they act normal again. These are all things that have been answered before, but it's been co-located into one convenient spot, so you don't have to dig for it.
Perfect, because when you search for "Serve Your Master Well" in here, it's going to pull up all this stuff. All the answers will be right there.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
All right, so that was all page 1. Again, most of that was old stuff except for a couple of newer things. There are a couple that are old on here. Can Darth Vader use Vader's might to move a unit that's being transported? Nope, you cannot. Can you be moved out of base contact or into base contact when using Vader's Might? Yep, you can. And a bit about measuring the distance from the unit's current position to its new position. After that, Luke had the clarification about droid troopers only making one move action when they panic. Can a creature trooper mini displace enemy trooper minis and start a melee with the same unit? Yep, of course you can. Can you surround enemy creature trooper mini bases? Yep, you can totally do that. And when they move, if they rotate, it won't, suppress them or displace them, rather. Can you engage an ATST in melee, but can that ATST shoot out of the melee? Yes, it can. Can you increase entourage abilities with commanding presence, comms relay, long range comms? Yep, you can. Seeing if there's anything else crazy here. Yeah, you can totally bounty a unit that gets changed because of covert ops. One that I'm surprised they had to make a ruling on, but I guess that's the way the cookie crumbles, are minefield condition tokens, bombing run objective tokens, and Bane token removed after they detonate, even though they aren't detonated via the detonate keyword. Yes, if it goes boom, you remove it when it's done going boom.
That makes sense.
It does
Yep.
make sense, but you know what? The ruling is in, just in case anybody's confused in the future.
So I
Um,
can't blow it up 3 turns in a row, is what you're telling me.
you cannot. You cannot. I apologize if that ruined somebody's
Darn.
local meta. What else? What else? You can engage units with hostage upgrade turn 1. This is one that's been going back and forth a little bit. Are minefield condition tokens considered to be enemy effects for the purposes of hostage card? What happens when a mine token at range 1 of a unit equipped with hostage detonates during round 1? No, the minefield battle card effect is not an enemy effect. I know that seems a little bit backwards because if it's an attack, but basically people, didn't want to juke the point of having mines on the board in the first place. So if you make that move through that space that a mine occupies, it is still going to go boom and you can still be hit by that. Is kind of the end state there.
Hostage exchange through a minefield. Great plan.
Yep. The next ruling is actually immediately related. It has to do with Bane tokens. Are they enemy effects for the purposes of hostage card? Yes, they are enemy effects. So hostage cards ignore all enemy Bane token effects during round 1. When an enemy Kablamo token detonates during round 1, do not perform an attack against a friendly unit with the hostage card. Friendly Kablamo tokens are not enemy effects, and if a friendly Kablamo token detonates at range 1 of a friendly unit with the hostage card, perform an attack against the unit as normal. So it's kind of a reversal of that minefield ruling. Basically, you can't put the Bane tokens in the way of enemies, or you can put them in the way of enemies, and you can that which means enemy hostage carriers will ignore that, but you can blow up yourself. That one was copy and pasted or put in there by Luke. I didn't ask him about it, but it's kind of interesting when you think about it. But I think they're really just trying to avoid, those kind of cheesy gotcha moments where you're bombing stuff on round 1 where you traditionally wouldn't be able to. But if you want to do to yourself, then that's a you problem kind of thing. If that makes sense,
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. They're just trying to close up what seem to be loopholes, right? It's
Yep.
same thing as like the standby tokens on repulsors, right? That was a weird loophole that was in there. It was unintuitive. So I'm glad to see them kind of fixing those little things.
But I do like that there's some of these where, like, this is unintuitive and you can't do it. But if you do it to yourself, then that's a you problem. I like those rulings, and I like that Luke keeps making them. This is a brand new one. We're actually about to get to the point where I started contributing. This is about war weary and reducing the range at which units can use a friendly commander's unit courage when it checks when it panics. Does war weary affect the range at which a unit can use the courage value of a friendly operative unit equipped with the inspiring presence upgrade card, or a friendly heavy unit with the field commander keyword and a command token, since neither of those are technically commander units? As written, War Weary has no effect in either of those cases, since the card explicitly refers to using the courage value of a friendly unit commander. unit. So if you're playing on War Weary and you've got an operative with inspiring presence, like 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 Padme, or you've got your AAT rocking that field commander, you're good. You've got range 3, buddy. Use that because right now that's the way the card is written. And, this is a good example of something that, might not seem like the best ruling in the world. Is it fair that they can get around those things? Well, LJ the player might have a different opinion than LJ the forum moderator or TalkPolite the forum moderator to go full Jekyll and Hyde here. But, there is a point where you're going to be overwriting too much rules as written if you make a certain rules call. And I thought that that was one of the things that Luke did really well in a lot of these rulings is he kind of balanced when we could squeak by to make something make a little more sense. And to where he kind of said, hey, I understand this might not feel the best right now, but it's going to take a bigger change and a more effort to fix this. So for now, we're going to call it as rules as written, but if we can fix something later to make it make more intuitive to the player, we'll do so. And I think that's something that's important to translate to the player base as well. Just because we made a ruling, it doesn't mean that it's never going to change or that it might not be reevaluated later. And I just wanted to make sure I said that sometime.
Yeah, that's an interesting one that I wouldn't have guessed that about War Weary. I would have played that wrong.
All right, so next is when a unit uses a fire support keyword to flip their token, does boss gain a name from his command card lying in wait? Since the unit did not activate, boss does not get a name. That was actually counter to the Invader League ruling we had previously, but after some discussion, after I talked to Luke about it a little bit, we did decide to reverse that one and say that nope, boss does not get an aim from lying in wait when a unit flips its token with the fire support keyword. There's actually a flipped ruling in there for poison and stims. If you do flip your token of fire support, you don't suffer those effects. You don't check for, panic and all that stuff. So that ruling did stay. But for different reasons, the boss ruling actually went the other way that the community had been playing it previously. And I thought it was kind of important to point that out.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. And that makes sense to me because they're both very similar end of activation, end of activation effects, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they should probably be treated the same.
Yep.
I'm glad Luke went that way.
So, next on the list is can units promoted through field command or keyword be targeted by a unit with bounty? Nope. Units promoted with field commander cannot be targeted by bounty. We have an official confirmation on that ruling. Ben, any thoughts?
I remember when this first came out with when Field Commander was first released, I was concerned about this, and I don't know. I think it makes really good thematic sense, but I don't love the negative effect it has on bounty hunters because one of the main benefits to bringing them is of course that you can get another victory point. But like the same is true for like impact keyword units. Oh, I brought all this impact because I thought I was going to face armor, and no one brought armor. So like it's just part of your army, I guess. It's a risk reward situation.
Yeah, definitely. That's one that I would say LJ the player definitely would like to maybe see looked at again. But I think overall, now that we're looking at 3 years in the game, 2.5 since Bounty came in it, let's say, I'd actually kind of like for Bounty to be looked at a second time and maybe find a way for that keyword to be changed that not only fixes this interaction, but that makes it a little more rewarding for the Bounty player. I think there's lots of opportunity here for change, and that's one that you might see targeted in the future, or at least I hope it would be. Next is the fire support one we had just talked about with Bosk. Can the effects of scatter, keyword, or displacement trigger standby tokens? That's one that, again, kind of community ruling had been prevailing for a while, but it was nice to have hard coded. No, the scatter is not a move, attack, or action and does not trigger standby token. It is a placed effect, and you pick up the model and you put it back down. It's not performing a move, attack, or an action. So that one does not count for triggering standby. Next on the list, do the aim tokens spent on the keyword lethal X allow rerolls? Nope, they do not. They do not work in that way. Do orders issued with a command card that are transferred to a new target through effects like authoritative and comms relay also confer the additional effects of the command card? They do not, because they are considered to be issued from the unit that came from, and in many cases that unit is not the unit that is issuing those orders. So I give an example here on this one. When you play Roger Roger and one of the orders is given to a unit of B1s, who then comms relays that to another unit, they do not receive the dodge or surge token. It's very similar in a way if you think about Dooku when he plays his 3-pip card, You Disappoint Me. You only get dodge tokens on the units that actually received the 3 orders, Dooku and 2 other units. You can chain the orders and coordinate down your line, but only the original 3 units who got the order will get the dodge token benefit. It's kind of the same thing here with Roger Roger, but we just wanted to spell it out explicitly because there might be more effects that come out with, new units and stuff like that this will address.
Nice.
Next, it gets a little more complicated. If Obi-Wan is equipped with situational awareness, can he use Guardian, Sarasu, and outmaneuver to take a critical hit result that another unit is defending against and subsequently dodge that result? No. No, you cannot. Outmaneuver allows a unit to spend dodge tokens to cancel critical results during the apply dodge and cover step, and that step has already passed by the time you're taking away hits with Guardian. So that one was a solid no there, though it was pretty cool, and Obi-Wan was unique in being able to have all those things equipped at him at one time because he had that training slot. But unfortunately, not today, Obi. Not today. Next one was kind of a more common sense rules as written. If an attacking unit such as a Bark splits fire, can a friendly unit with fire support also split its fire and add on? No, you can only add to one pool, not multiple pools with the same fire support action. If a Tauntaun Rider unit withdraws and moves in a melee, does Ram trigger? Ram does not trigger. That's an older ruling that's been around for a while. And then last on the list for this page is if Maul plays his 2-pip, can an enemy unit at range 3 of him contribute an attack using fire support? It cannot. It has to legally be able to make that attack, and he cannot be attacked from greater than range 2. So no adding on if you're outside of that distance. Whew. All right, we're on the last page, folks.
Excited. It's gonna be good stuff in this. I've got good feelings about page 3.
If a
Tell you
unit
what.
that is being transported and gains a standby token, does it keep its standby token if the unit transporting it moves? Yes, it does. The unit did not perform the move, so it does not lose the standby token. Again, kind of a common sense one there, but good to spell out.
Yep.
When do I check to see if the line from attacking unit leader to defending mini crosses a terrain piece determined cover? Only check that line if the defending mini is obscured in any way by that terrain. That's one that, again, kind of spelled out in the RRG, but we wanted to explicitly spell out because it comes up all the time. People might go to check for cover and then see that the line is crossing something that doesn't actually obscure the defender and accidentally give that unit that cover. We wanted to make sure that that was clear, that you don't do that. You only check to see if the line crosses something that actually obscures the defender. All right, Barricada Part 2. Fortified position states the barricades placed by this card must be placed horizontally. Does that mean they have to be placed parallel to the board edge? Horizontally means that the barricades cannot be placed on their sides, such as they stand up tall. So you can't make them, like an I or a T, where they're going long ways up and down. They have to be parallel to the board, but they don't have to be parallel to a particular board edge. So there were actually some people that were playing fortified positions where the barricades lined up perfectly with the board edges. And they didn't cant them at all. They didn't change like the angle relative to the board edge. They kept it like straight on and perpendicular and whatnot. You don't have to do that. That's not how you play fortified positions. And also, to add on to that, can the barricades be placed lying down on their sides, or must they be placed traditionally? That was related to that thing that changed the RRG. You can place them on their sides. You don't have to place them traditionally. You can place them like they were knocked over. But as long as they're on the table, knocked over, and they're not placed so they're facing up and down, like the first point says, then you meet those requirements. Again, this is one that I think over time I will try to put some pictures in, but I had a feeling that the official rules FAQ thread was not going to be too kind to pictures from TTS, so that's probably going to take a little bit more time.
Well, now, why would you ever do this? Well, I'm sorry to get distracted. Wouldn't this only reduce the profile of the barricade that you put down, therefore making it less likely that your minis are obscured by it?
I think the answer to that is yes. And I'm
Okay,
just
so
going to
it's a
leave
bad
it at
idea.
that because
Okay, bad
I'm
idea
not
to
sure
do
why people wanted to do that. But when I asked a couple people, like, hey, what are things that you'd like to see add to the FAQ thread? And this came up like 5 times. So I was like, all right, we're writing these stupid things down. And that way I can point to it if somebody brings it up to me at LVO.
Fascinating. Yeah, no, okay. Yeah, I wish it just said traditionally, but also if you want to lay them down, I guess sure.
Yeah,
That's
go
it. Make it
nuts. The option is in
harder to
there.
get cover.
That's a good question. I'm also not seeing what the advantage is. And players always are supposed to discuss and come to an agreement on terrain. So you could just say, even if it's laid down, it's a barricade, and by definition, it provides cover. So
Yeah,
I,
I think it
I
would
don't know
provide
why
heavy
you
cover
would
if it
do it.
obscures.
Yeah.
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 Why would you do that? Yeah.
That's a great
Interesting.
question.
Yeah.
I don't have all the answers.
Come on, LJ.
I know.
We need you.
All right, next is, can area terrain block line of sight? Ground vehicles, which are treated as area terrain, block line of sight, but other types of area terrain should be defined ahead of game as line of sight blocking or not line of sight blocking. Any area terrain that has pieces that can be picked up and moved to accommodate movement should not block line of sight. That one, honestly, this is kind of a special love letter to TOs here, especially that last bit, because, there's a Warhammer set of trees that have the trees where you can take them in and out really easy that are super common. And there's other things you can do to 3D print and mimic this. And if you do that, if the terrain can be changed easily in some way, either on purpose or by mistake, it shouldn't block line of sight, because then you can accidentally create artificial, barriers to that piece of terrain. But on the flip side of that, there are area terrain pieces that Brendan and I have used, such as a patch of trees that is so dense that you can't even move minis through it, that we do count as line of sight blocking. And so at the end of the day, Nima had just said a second ago, this is talk to your opponent written out in a FAQ.
Yeah, 100%. So I have yeah. Now I will tell you that I was talking about this one and doing some research about it recently, and the discussion of creature troopers came up as well, because creature troopers can obscure and therefore provide cover, but they do not block line of sight, which I think is very interesting. So and the reason I mention this is I have a question for you, LJ. Should I submit a question about starting to rule creature troopers as area terrain, just like ATRTs and ATSTs and things like that, to this forum? Or is something like that would result in that large of a rule change not something that would be appropriate to send in as a question?
I think at the end of the day, it's going to be pretty open-ended what you can submit, because the nice thing about these requests is I can always say no, like, unfortunately that falls outside the scope of this forum. But then, take your post, copy paste it, quote it, whatever, into the internal discussion area that Luke and I use to talk about these things, and pin it for future RRG consideration. So, while I think that specific question would be a straight up modification to the RRG, that's something that I think would still be good to ask, because even if you don't get your answer today, he could pocket it and answer it later. And so, I
Good.
mean, I think to that question, my answer would be yes. Submit it anyway. See what happens.
Good. So then, and so that's what I was hoping that you would say. So again, we're hearing if you have a question about something, like, it's okay to submit it. It's probably not appropriate to be like, hey, I think you should change the rules to be this. That's that way. It's not your direct line about how I wish the rules were necessarily. But if you've got these questions that are related to posts and things like that, it certainly doesn't hurt to throw them out there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, worst comes to worst, I explain to you why I'm doing it, and then I hit delete shortly after.
Fair.
It's very, very similar to running a Legion Discord. Next is the bombing run bonanza. This had 5 questions and 5 answers. As you can see, I was trying out a new format because it looks different than You May Serve Your Master Well. Bombing run had come up with a ton of different things. While playing Bombing Run, are vehicles eligible to receive an objective token? Yes. Can you control more than one objective token at a time? No. You cannot control more than one objective at a time in Bombing Run. That is a little different than Recover the Supplies, let's say, because the card specifies that you can only receive one. And because it doesn't specify during setup, it applies to the entire card, not just the setup phase of that card. So for Bombing Run, you can only carry one no matter what time of the mission it is. Now, if you blow it up, you can pick up another, but you can only actively be carrying one at a time. What happens to an objective token when it's detonated? It is removed from the battlefield, like that earlier ruling. Can units with incognito be assigned an objective token? No, they cannot. Very similar to the invader ruling we put in there for K2SO. What happens when a unit uses the drop action but an enemy claims that objective token and then that enemy is defeated without ever using the drop action itself? You can only detonate it if it was flipped to its unclaimed side via the drop ability. In this case, it's currently on its unclaimed side because the last unit to claim it was defeated. So if you get that bomb carrier close, but you don't drop it, and then you lose it, and somebody else picks it up, because you didn't drop it, it doesn't count. It's kind of the end state. So for me, it actually kind of makes it easier. Did you drop it? Did you perform the drop action? No? Oh, you didn't perform the drop action? You cannot blow it up. That actually kind of makes this easier to play for me.
100%. Yeah. And thematically, I think what's happening here is that enemy unit, they diffuse the bomb, so to speak, right? They turn the bomb off. So even if you blast them off the board, the bomb has been turned off.
Yep, that's a good way to think about it too. I like that. Every once in a while, I try to think about how this would look realistically. I really don't try to put reality into every single ruling, because if you do that for a miniatures game, you're going to go insane. But every once in a while, it makes sense to think about it that way.
It's just years of Counter-Strike makes me.
Yep, there you go.
Think about it that way.
Next on the list for objective card key positions, does the objective token that you use to mark terrain block movement from minis? No, it doesn't. It is just a marker. It's just a marker. I don't know who needs to hear that, but somebody out there has asked us this question repeatedly, and the answer is no. So now it is officially on an FAQ. Be happy. Next, what miniature do I use? I'm glad you're happy, Nima. What miniature do I use to measure range regarding abilities and effects? This is a question that comes up all the time, especially for newer players. We get used to using the unit leader for attacks and cover and range and stuff like that. But that's all the unit leader is used for. There's very few things that are actually used from the unit leader. There's actually more stuff, I think, now that happens from any model in the unit, and that's what this FAQ was meant to address. For example, a medic droid mini does not have to be in range 1 of the targeted unit of the treat action, as long as another miniature from its unit is in range 1 of the target unit. So for effects and abilities, it's almost always going to be any model to any model. For attacks, of course, that's all going to be unit leader. But again, we wanted to codify this one because it came up a lot and a lot and a lot, and we wanted to make sure it wasn't asked anymore, or it was asked less, or again, if you've been playing for 3 years and you're like, I don't remember why I do it this way, now you can point to this and get your answer.
I love it. It's great to have it clear.
Speaking of things that were cleared up, when you're issued an order and then use comms relay to issue that order to another unit, can the original unit be issued another order? No, you cannot do that. The only time you can break this chain was with BatMed, that earlier ruling that we talked about. But for regular old comms relay, you cannot be issued another order during the issue order step. So that was one that we wanted to make sure we cleared up because, you'd coordinate down the line your B1s, you'd give the AAT an order, and then, maybe you'd pop an order back on that B1. Can't do that. If you relayed it off, only one order during the issue orders step. Can a unit with immune enemy effects, such as a hostage card equipped, suffer displacement from enemy units? I have to fix that. It says answer A. Yes, displacement is not considered an enemy effect because it is not the result of an opponent's card effect or keyword. Note that that unit may also suffer displacement from friendly units. So again, this was kind of made to match some of those rulings that came up with hostage exchange earlier. But basically, if it is immune enemy effects, can you suffer displacement? Yes, you can still suffer displacement. So try not to step on your own hostage units. Or if you step on enemy hostage units, that'll work, but they're going to be the ones to move it, and you might be creating an artificial disadvantage by mistake.
You might get some kind of advantage by only displacing the non-unit leader, but if you're doing that, you're possibly putting yourself in a precarious position.
Definitely.
Yeah, we'll see.
How
Maybe
much
the
Um,
do you
board
want the
state allows it.
suppression?
Yeah.
yes, at the very least, it is a suppression, so that's a good point. Next on the list, can a single unit benefit from being the target of multiple copies of the Vigilance upgrade? No, because the effect of Vigilance is not a keyword with the next value. Multiple instances do not stack. Very similar to if a unit, let's say that your army has 2 copies of Strict Orders. When you would go to activate that unit, you wouldn't be able to pull 2 suppression tokens off. You would just be able to pull 1 suppression token off. That's because it has the exact same trigger, and you can't tell it to do the same thing twice. So very similar ruling there with Vigilance, but one that I think is going to be important as we start to see more and more copies of that card be, shown across armies. This is a new one as well. Can the additional attacks generated by beam weapons target defenders beyond the weapon's maximum range? And can you target closer than the weapon's minimum range? Yes to maximum, no to minimum. That's one that Luke and I kind of talked about for a while. And, oddly enough, it matched the picture. Because when you see the beam, you start at a point and you fire away and off, or, it moves one direction. It doesn't zigzag. And so essentially, the effect that they were trying to go for was to avoid that kind of zigzagging between 2 different weapon ranges. So we picked one, which was the weapon's maximum, instead of the minimum, is kind of the end state there for that one. This is one that, it's only started to come up recently, but as more beam weapons make their way into the game, it might be adjusted later. We'll kind of see. We might take a look at that one a second time and maybe switch things. What else? We get to. All right, so we're getting to some newer stuff here as well. We're going to Lando and All In. After playing All In, Lando declares a critical result before rolling attack dice. The results on the dice are 1 blank and 1 offensive surge. Does an offensive surge result fulfill the requirement of All In on account of his surge profiles? No, it does not. So basically, you look at the dice as they truly are at that step. Lando surges will not convert to crits until after the effect has been triggered. So he didn't roll a crit result in that attack. Even though he surges to crit, the crit face is not there when you rolled it. So you didn't roll a crit. It doesn't count.
Okay, it really is 1 and 8.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Can Uncanny Luck be used before checking the requirements to trigger All In during an attack or defense roll? Abilities and keywords that allow player to re-roll or modify dice are used during the specified step of a roll. In this case, Uncanny Luck, aim tokens, and observation tokens can all be used, since their effects trigger the re-roll dice step. So this is to build on this ruling up here. Let's take the same example. I roll my dice and I get a blank and an offensive surge, but I declared a crit. You can use observations, observation tokens, aim tokens, or uncanny luck if we're talking about the defensive side of the house to re-roll those. But again, surge results won't count. So like if this was my roll and I was looking for a natural crit, I could spend an aim token, re-roll both of those, and see if I could roll that crit. Gamblers be gambling.
I love it.
All right. This was, again, kind of a familiar invader one. Do orders generated from coordinate keywords stack with the effects of mechanized incursion? They do. Basically, droids are still really good at chaining orders. You can read this example if you would like, but they still chain orders real good, is the end result. If a player divulges Darkness Descends, can they use contingencies to play a different card on turn 1? No, as Darkness Descends requires the card to be selected during the first battle round. You have to select it during the first battle round, so you cannot willingly contingency it away. You could be hit by change of plans, but as we talked about, that's a bad idea. But you cannot, essentially, it's willingly versus an effect another player forces on you, is the difference between those two rulings. All right.
Makes sense to me.
One of the other bulk rulings was ace up his sleeve. There's a lot of different things that can happen with ace up its sleeve. You may not use Lando's cards for the duration of the turn, which includes the command phase as well as the activation plays if I've altered the deal is played. So you can't throw out ace up his sleeve from your command hand or contingency pile if I've altered the deal his flaw has been played. Can you use his ace up his sleeve effect after Lando's been defeated? Nope, can't do that. Can you trigger improvised orders and use that to get an extra, activation token out of things? No, you can't do that. And last but not least, can you use Commanding Presence on the secondary effect of Ace Up His Sleeve to increase the range at which he issues an order? No, you can't do that either. If you look at the secondary effect of Ace Up His Sleeve, you can discard it to issue an order to Lando or a unit within range 1 to 2 of him. Because it's using Lando as the measuring stick, and you're not issuing an order from Lando, you don't get to increase it with stuff like Commanding Presence, if that makes sense. I like referring to Lando as a measuring stick. I don't know about you guys. All right. Last but not least, there's a couple ISB investigation. If Callus is defeated during the round, he plays ISB investigation to any command card set aside by the command card effect remain set aside in the subsequent round. Yes, even if he's defeated, that effect still remains. So, let's say I play my 2-pip and I declare next turn you cannot play 1-pip, set them aside. And Callus is brutally slain. Doesn't matter. You still cannot play 1-pips on the next turn. His investigation was successful, even though his body is broken and destroyed.
It makes sense.
It makes sense. Yep, and again, it makes it easier because you don't have to remember and switch stuff mid-turn. That effect still happens no matter what. All right, and then last but not least is if ISB investigation is played and a number 1 is declared, does sorry about the mess have to be set aside? No. Sorry about the mess counts as a 1-pip only during the command hand building process. It would not be set aside.
And similarly, at last, Darth Maul's at last would be.
Yes.
Because it counted as a 3-pip when you were building, but it's a 1-pip now.
Yeah, so if for some reason you're playing a Dooku Maul list like I like to run, you should totally declare 1-pips because you'll get a lot of cards out of the side.
Yeah, half their hands.
Yeah, that would be a beautiful play. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually closes out our FAQs. That's it. That's what we ruled on, folks.
Fantastic.
We switch it back to our faces
Awesome.
here. Boom. And we are back.